Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I'm Adam JD Martin, your host, and tonight we're going to be hunting down the spring market. So I had a few minutes here to jump on the MLS, and I've just been kind of poking around at some of the markets that I'm used to looking at. And you know what? The stats. So we just did our market update for February, right? And there's been like a bazillion new listings, like everywhere we talked to. So we talked to this week. We talked about Hamilton. We talked to Durham region. We talked to the Waterloo region, and everybody's got a bazillion listings. And so I kind of wanted to just check up on London because we currently don't have a London sponsor. So shout out anybody that is currently a realtor in London. If you would like to be a sponsor on the channel, just reach out to me directly and we can talk about it because we are missing the London market update. If nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it myself. And I think that's a decent way for me to stay informed because this is one of my like primary markets that I've always invested in. But as I jumped on to Matrix here, which is like the real estate agent portal for the back end. And I'm looking here just on the public side for you guys so I don't lose my license for talking shit because there's a ton of listings. Okay. There's a lot of new listings, but they're all kind of shitty. And I'm not really sure what I want to think about that yet. And I'm going to walk you through a couple listings today. We'll just kind of talk about it. And we'll also use this stream as an Ask Me Anything. I'm feeling way better this week. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I felt like shit the last couple of weeks, and I just am starting to get better. I slept according to my watch, like, I don't know, 10 and a half hours last night. So I'm actually like on the road to recovery here. I do not have a beer tonight, but I in fact have a, what is this? It's like a club soda. I got a club soda, but it's tricked out because you can't see, but these are actually diamonds. I'm going to finger this club soda right now. You're welcome, Peter, for that. Peter's laughing in the background. These are diamonds. Okay, folks. So it's kind of an elevated club soda right now. It's a bougie club soda. So if you guys you're sitting there, you're like, Adam's not even having a beer with me this week. Well, guess what? I got diamond ice cubes. How about that? The reason I brought my diamond ice cubes is I thought we were going to make some money tonight. I thought we were going to look at the market and be like, hell yeah, brother. That's a listing I'd take down. But so far I haven't found that. So we're going to have to just make the most of what we can with that. And if you guys have any comments or want to participate in the conversation, please just drop a comment there. You can join Peter. I see he's already talking about fingering, and that's fantastic. So yeah, drop a comment. I'm more than happy to make this and Ask Me Anything as well, because honestly, the new listings that I'm seeing are all just shit. So that's something to talk about. But we will actually jump into one that I do find kind of interesting off the bat. So this thing says it's been listed for 7 days. And it's actually at a price that's palatable. So, you know, when I'm thinking about London, I'm thinking about maybe like a $2,400 price point for rent for something like this. Maybe 25. I don't know. It's been a little while since I've actually actively sought out tenants, and the market's probably changed a little bit. Okay. So it's been like maybe half a year or just over that since I sought tenants out. But for a full house, this actually is a great location. So this listing where it says attention investors, first of all, that's a great way to not get financing because that usually means the inside is trashed. But the inside actually doesn't look bad at all in here. We'll click through the photos in a second. But usually when you see a listing like that, like if you bring that to the bank, just be aware that they're always like, oh yeah, handyman special, eh? That means it's totally fucked and we can't give you financing. In this case, it doesn't. So that's good. Great location, steps from the Kellogg's building. So let's just check out where it actually is. If we go here on directions, this is how you guys always get my address and why I always see some of you creeping out my fucking window. But here we go. So here's the factory, right? So when it says the Kellogg's area, they're talking about the factory. It's like this really epic, huge, like, I don't know, like indoor playground thing for kids and families and stuff like that. It's actually a big attraction for, families coming and for tourism and stuff like that. There's a fire station right there. There's also a brewery, and then like just a couple blocks down, there's like there's a few other like breweries and stuff like that, and like a gin distillery and stuff. Right over here by like Dundas and Adelaide. So you know, this is kind of a rough area. Like it really is the worst area in town, Dundas and Adelaide. But surprisingly, if you walk over these few blocks, it's really kind of a nice neighborhood. Like just like the only other thing I would say is these tracks are right here, right? So these tracks obviously suck because nobody likes fucking trains, but trains are always bad as those damn planes in Miami. Those who have been following along for the last few years, you'll know what I'm talking about. Fuck those planes. But this is actually a pretty good neighborhood, and they are correct about it being a really interesting place for rentals. And this neighborhood was always looked over, but it's got super popular in the past few years when they actually built that factory attraction. And then I think COVID kind of screwed things up. So it's probably bumped things back down in terms of price. So this is actually a really exciting price. If you ask me, this is probably like a fishing price where they're like, listing at 249.9, but actually expecting offers at like 380. So at 249.9, I personally myself would go in with like a cash offer at the ask price, skip all the nonsense and just like try and buy it. But that's probably not what they're actually looking for. So that's worth a conversation or like a walkthrough with your real estate agent. If anybody watching this wants to go see it, I'll come with you and we could go and check this out. But look at this, like, older style, older finishes inside, but that's what you expect from a building like this. Like, honestly, this is kind of ideal because it's not trashed. Obviously it's vacant, right? That looks great. All this old original wood too, like, god damn, they just don't make anything like this anymore. If you switch out just some lighting in here and we'll go to the kitchen, do some cabinets, do some lighting, man, for like under 10 grand, you could really make this look pretty good. It's a little unfortunate that this laundry machine is right here in the kitchen, but what are you going to do? I mean, this is an old building, right? Cute. Like, this is actually probably really cute for its time, with the backsplash like that. But, honestly, just rip all that shit out. Or what you could do as another option is just turn this into an Airbnb, right? Like, I'm sure you have to get a license now and you can't write off your expenses because we live in a communist country. And, you're going to have a lot more expenses for the bit more revenue that you get, but you will always have customers, right? This area is super popular for short-term rentals and super popular for people coming to visit. Both the hospital is a very short drive from there. The downtown is very short as well. So you might have somebody coming to stay and work downtown or work at the hospital. And then you've got the factory right there as well. That's a ship bedroom for sure. That's very small. Don't love that. I hate how these roofs work. That was also unnecessary, by the way. With an A-frame like that, you didn't need to do that. So I don't know why that's built like that, but you can poke your head up in the attic here and just see what the hell they did that for. That'd be a good tip if you were going to go do a walkthrough here. Some other things, just like for general awareness, when I'm looking at something like this, like, it looks like at some point somebody has done something with the electrical because these 3-prong outlets don't belong there. Right. So like something's up because those are relatively new, or they've like painted over them and they did a good job painting over them because it looks new. Oh yeah, they've got Decora switches too. So, you can make some assumptions about that. Like, either the wiring's been done or somebody's tried to dress it up so that it looks a little bit better. Either way, good question to ask, like, what type of wiring's in there. They've got, oh, hey, Ben, what's going on? Ben, I'm sorry I left you last week. I really am. But welcome back. We're live. We've got our club sodas. I hope you've got your beer, Ben. I'm doing my best here. I'm not actually back on the beers. I did just have a beer for dinner. Okay, it was Grandpa's 76th birthday today. He's 70 freaking 6. That's a lot of candles. That's a lot of spankings too. And I'm back. I'm back, baby. We got club soda this week with diamond ice cubes. Let's go. I usually don't like ice in my drinks, so I don't know what happened there, but I had to elevate it somehow. Anyways, back to this Gucci listing that we've got. Another thing outside with these buildings that I always look at is just like the brickwork, right? Like, make sure that these block foundations. Hey, what's going on there? What is that? Hey, no, go back. So I like to, oh yeah, I forgot you can't zoom on MLS because why would you want to ever do that? Fucking MLS. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a weird shadow or if that's starting to crack. Doesn't look serious anyways. That would be like pretty superficial, but something I would look at anyways. This old awning off the back, I don't love that. You probably just remove it if you really wanted to, but you could just leave that too. Now we got to get back to normal. Oh God, here we go. This is why you guys come to watch me fiddle fuck with Zoom all night. Here we go. Boom. Okay, where were we at? I kind of panicked there about the Zoom button. All right, yeah, this awning, that's kind of gross to me. Like, I don't know, I'd probably just delete that, right? Get some sun back there. Maybe redo these steps. That looks a little janky to me. They have a fire pit, which is kind of interesting. Little shed. Parking looks decent. Looks like it's got AC, which is really nice. That's just asking for a bird's nest, not having something there. So honestly, you got to do something about that. I actually have a bird right now that's moved into my barbershop, right? So there's a hole somehow on like the vent thing on the outside, and they just pieced in to the bathroom. So now there's a bathroom bird, basically a mascot. I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, you've got a mascot. I don't know what to tell you. I should charge extra for that, right? Raise the rent, baby. Satellite dish, always disgusting. If you guys hear any like crazy sounds, it's my dog playing with a bone. So I'm sorry about that, but it's just gonna have to do. You know, satellite dish, fucking just get rid of that. Okay, it's 2024 or 3. Is it 24 or 23 right now? I don't know, whatever. It's not 19 goddamn 90. So we don't need this giant dish here because everything comes over the internet now. So just get some internet, get rid of that dish, and clean this up because it looks disgusting. But the point is, it's kind of an interesting listing based on the price. Now, if you could get it anywhere near there, you'd be at the 1% rule, which is fantastic. If you did an Airbnb, you could probably get up to, you know, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a month. A great resource for that is, shoot, I actually forgot what it's called now, but I'll think about it over the next few minutes. But there's like all sorts of websites and services that will tell you, they essentially aggregate the data and tell you what like an average rent per month would be for a listing on Airbnb in that specific market. And they'll even show you like the actual listing for those top performing listings so that you could copy and paste essentially, you know, their listing description, or you could look at some of the amenities that they have and make sure that you have the same amenities, or you could just try and compete with them on, you know, having a theme or something like that would be really fun considering it's close to the Kellogg's area. And that's actually something Matt McKeever did there, is he made like a gaming style one. So like almost like an arcade style Airbnb listing in that neighborhood, which is fantastic. Relentless 101 News just asked, what would be the strategy here? Airbnb only? No, I think actually if it's sold around this price point, it'd be a great long-term rental, right? Not necessarily like if we look at the photos, right? Like you're not going to get a huge burr out of this because, okay, Mayday, fuck off, please go somewhere else. Please go away. If you rented it out, you'd be at a positive cash flow, right? Not a lot of money either, but there's no chance that this building stays at $250,000 over time, right? Because that's what I was buying things for in like Oldies Village. Those properties are now 450. But I think that this is a pricing strategy, and so you're not likely to get it for 249.9 anyways. I would have to look on sort of the back end of my matrix here to figure out like if there's any other information or anything like that that would help us out here, but I'll do that at a different time. Long story short, you're not going to get a huge burr, right? Because like it's basically at its highest and best use. You know, I would swap the kitchen out, just get rid of the cabinets and make and update that. But other than that, I mean, that's all you would do, right? You wouldn't even touch the flooring. You wouldn't touch anything else. Maybe some of the lighting, you know, obviously just paint the damn whole place, but like, you know, maybe $3,000 for paint, maybe $5-6 grand for the kitchen. And then I'd put just like $1,000 of lighting, right? So that's 10 grand all in for improvements. And I think that you would have a really great rental. And rent on something like that might be 2,300 plus utilities, maybe a little bit more. And you know, I would say you could get that all day. So that's like where I'm at. So that basically puts you at the 1% rule, maybe just a bit less, right? So, you know, for me, that's a pretty good deal if you can get it anywhere near this price. Now, the problem is if you can't get it for 250 grand and they actually are looking for like 380, then it makes no sense and it's completely insane, right? Like maybe it makes sense for like a personal residence or something, but as an investment, I mean, if we look at 380, right? So let's just say it's 385, and like the ARV is 385. Holy Christ, that's a huge number. 385. Right? And we put just 10 grand in, and that wouldn't take very long at all, right? That would take like 1 month. You just have a really hard time making money if it goes more than that. So, you know, at 385, it doesn't make any sense, right? You'd be losing essentially, you'd be losing like $300 a month. But if you do get it at 250, I think the numbers look a lot better. Now, we didn't run it through the calculator, but this is always what you do, right? This is how you look at it quick. So at If you got 2,400 a month, then you could get about 420. Hey, shout out Peter, smoking a joint right now. 420 is kind of the estimate of cash flow you could get if you had a mortgage at 6%, which is high now, right? Mortgages are higher now. Oh, we should change that down to 6 too. And, you know, so if you got a mortgage at 6%, which is like super realistic, and this actually has us paying utilities. So if we did not pay utilities, I'm not going to go ahead and screw around with that. But if we did not pay utilities, like you'd have actually a lot of cash flow there at 250,000 if you could get it near there. So what's like the make or break point? Like we'll check 300,000. At 300,000, you're still making 161. So somewhere at like 320, I bet, is where it stops making any sense at all. Yeah. So like around 320 is where that'd be essentially like your max allowable offer, assuming you're only going to put 10,000 in for renovations. And there's additional costs built in here because I always have utilities paid by myself, but you could, well, maybe even let's just assume then you only get 2,400, including utilities, right? And then you've got this utility onus yourself. That would be pretty conservative. So that's actually a pretty good spread. Right. But you got to think like if this is us fishing, like if they're actually not going to sell it 249.9, but instead they're going to sell it like, you know, 350. Well, then it doesn't make sense. Right. And that's why the calculator is helpful because it will easily allow you to kind of gut check something so that you can continue to do more research. Like maybe you go and walk through this building and like it's literally falling over, but somehow we didn't get that captured in the photos. Now you can adjust your renovation budget and you have an idea of what your max allowable offer is, including everything, right? So when the price needs to change, then it's just pulling a lever, right? So if we need a bigger rehab budget, then all we do is reduce our max allowable purchase price, right? So right now we have it at 10K, but if we figure out there's $10,000 of roof work that needs to be done, great. Then our max allowable offer goes from 320,000 down to 310. And that way you're always pulling the lever so that you're staying inside the profit zone. Right? We want to be in the profit zone so that we can have diamond fucking shaped ice cubes at any time that we want, just on tap. We have diamond ice cubes on freaking tap because we're staying in the profit zone. And that's what matters. So Relentless here commented, why would you like to do the BRRRR strategy if you can get a down payment, get a mortgage, let it pay itself with a little bit of cash flow and wait to refinance it, give it another 2 down payments, refi again? Yeah. So that's actually exactly what I'm saying. So like, in terms of this building, and if I'm misunderstanding your comment, just elaborate, but I think we're on the same page where what I'm saying is you actually wouldn't do a BRRRR strategy here, right? Because it's already in a good enough condition that the improvements that you're making are truly only going to be so that you attract a better tenant. They're not actually going to like massively improve the value of the building because from an appraiser's point of view, like just doing cabinets is not a massive improvement on the building's value, right? Just doing lighting is not a massive improvement on the building's value. Like it, you know, if you've invested the 10,000 we talked about by doing cabinets, backsplash, some lighting, and some paint, you're not going to take this thing from being a $250,000 property up to like a $400,000 property, right? Which is where it would make sense to actually BRRRR it to get your capital out. But for this, you would just put your money down, right? So you put in your total cash required is 83 grand, right? 83 and a half. So you would put in your 83 and a half thousand. And I apologize for anybody on your phone. I know that this spreadsheet doesn't show up properly when you're on your phone. The only thing I can tell you on that is like, we do this show at the same time every week. So just get a goddamn computer. If you don't have a computer, go to the library. Okay. They're free. But this spreadsheet's really handy because it tells us how much cash we need. And it tells us right away where, like what toggles we need to pull, right? We can either spend less on rehab or we can spend less on the building, or we can go all out and try and get a better ARV. It depends on what the data tells us. That's how we should base this. Like what maximum rent do we think we can get? What's the maximum after repair value, right? That's going to tell you how much you should invest, right? That'll sort of inform you about like what to do, because I don't think it's worth improving the flooring in this building. And I don't think it's worth going and doing all modern trim and like new windows and like whatever you can dream of. It's probably not worth it. But having a new kitchen, right? Maybe even update that bathroom vanity. You would still be able to do that inside this 10K budget. Like just doing those little things takes it from that like dated look to like a modern classic kind of where it's got the traditional old style trim, which is actually really beautiful anyways. And then it's got a modern cabinet system that has like the slow closed doors and it's nice and it's white and it's bright. It makes it feel new without being a whole lot more money. But the thing is, like, it's unlike a traditional burr that we're always seeking, where we can take a super, like a building in a lot of disrepair, purchase it at a really low price because of the amount of work that it needs, do the work ourselves, where our input costs are worth like half or 1/3 of what our output is on the after repair value, right? So typically when I'm putting in a $50,000 into a project, I want that to be worth at least $100,000 to the value of the building. Okay, this is not that. This is not going to add. I mean, maybe you could say doing the cabinets and doing some lighting and shit would add $20,000 of value to the property, but that's not worth going to the bank to refinance, right? Because you're gonna have like there's gonna be fees and stuff. So like maybe you go and refinance it in a year or two, but it's not one of those things like when we buy a really shitty building, put like 50 to 80 grand into it, and then it's like a whole new other building. That's when you want to go and refinance, because you've just sunk in the 80 that it costs you to buy it, an 80 that you cost to improve it. Now you got 160 grand sitting there and you're only making 500 a month. The return on your cash doesn't make a lot of sense. But on something like this, where you've got, let's bring this back down to 250. 250. So on something like this, where you've got, and this is only going to take 1 month to do that. So where you've got $2,400 a month coming in and your actual cash required was like 68 grand. Okay. If your total cash required was 68 grand here and you're bringing in 420 a month, your ROI is actually only still 7.41, right? So it's not like the cash flow is making you rich. You're almost better to privately lend the money, right, at 10%. The difference is that you would be acquiring an asset, a true asset, in a really desirable neighborhood of a growing city, right? So there's like this huge X factor here where like this building likely would appreciate a decent amount. And if we looked at London historically, we're getting at least 5% a year. So on top of your 7%, you could look at an additional 5% on top of on the purchase price of the value of the building coming in terms of actual value. Plus you would have somebody paying down, right? We put our mortgage here at 6%, which is actually pretty high for right now. But there's somebody there paying down your mortgage every month. So there's forced savings, right? Reducing your debt. Then you're getting the cash flow, your positive cash flow after the forced savings. Then you've got the X factor of the market actually appreciating, right? So if you were able to buy at 250, it's a freaking steal. If you're able to buy at 320, I think it's a decent deal where you still cash flow, but you're on the edge of it being not a great use of your capital, right? But all of these things always come down to like, how am I going to use my money? And you have to understand personally what your tolerance is for risk and what your desired outcome actually is. Like if your desired outcome is to slowly grow a portfolio, then plays like this can make sense. If your desired outcome is to like triple your money, this is not the way to do that. Like you will literally, well, you could do it, but it would take you 20 years. See you later, Ben. We'll see you next week. It will take you like 20 years if you're trying to like triple your money on an investment like this. And for the same reason, like private lending at 10% is never going to triple your money because it takes so long to do it. Right. So this is all a balance of risk and also like what your actual end state or goal is. And so I think that's always to be taken into consideration. Like $400 a month in cash flow is fantastic, right? If you get 10 of those buildings, you're probably replacing an average Canadian salary or more. But $400, like, again, you would need 10, right? And so if it takes $68,000 to purchase this, right? We see that right here. I can make this a bit bigger for the folks at the library. But if it takes $68,000 to get into this, and let's just look over here because I know you guys are going to get distracted by the flip side of it. If it takes 68 grand to get into here, if you needed 10 of those, that's $670,000. And if we have $670,000 in this goddamn country, that means you've probably made like, I don't know, $2-3 million and then got taxed like a bazillion dollars and then also had to live in a country that has an incredibly high cost of living. So I'd say like you made $3 or $4 million to be able to have $600,000 of cash. So, it's kind of a balance here. And if you ever want to get to $3 or $4 million, it's not going to be with base hits like this. But this is how you can get started and have a small thing grow into a bigger thing. And I think that that's actually a really important thing for people to think about is like, how can I get my capital that I have now to get bigger? And it doesn't need to triple overnight, but this is one way that you could make it grow. And I think growth is great, especially when we have a bazillion dollars of taxes and we have a bazillion dollars of inflation, right? And then enter some new fucking tax that we can dream up. So it's like, it's hard to tell what's the best use of your capital. But something like this, if it produces money every month and somebody's paying down your mortgage, it's hard to disagree with that. Right. And when you go back here to the market, and this is what I was kind of griping about at the start of this stream, it's just like there's not a lot on the market. Like, if you really look at it, if you look at these entry level prices, which by the way is where all the competition is going to be. So, like, if you're going to be competing at these prices, like, I'd say like firm offers only and like pretty aggressive positioning from your offers. Like here's another listing. So this is 712 Adelaide. And I think we've looked at this before. Let's take a look. $712 Adelaide. We'll just drop a guy on because, oh no, this is totally different. Isn't it? No, this is new. We haven't looked at this yet. So, okay. So, well, let's actually think about it then. I think it's this. Oh, that's 707. Where the hell is it? What's that? What's that say? 700? How would we go lower? These ones are always for sale too. These two little weirdos. I don't know why they're always for sale, but they really are. And nobody ever buys them. So I don't know what that's about, but I never looked into it. 712 hidden here in the trees. So obviously, the building's not in great shape. It's kind of beat up. I'm just trying to see how the parking works here. So I think you just drive and it's probably parking in the rear. But you probably do actually get parking back there. I know Matt had some properties on Adelaide where like you got a bunch of parking in the rear, but it was a lot more open than this. So like, God, even just looking at this, like, obviously nobody's been taking care of this. You'd probably need an arborist to just get rid of some of this shit here because it's just problems waiting to happen. But we can, oops, sorry. And we only have one photo, which is just fantastic. Front of house. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy about that. So we see the front of the house. Attention, renovators and builders. You're not getting financing on this building. That's all that says. This home was previously a duplex. There is no entrance to the building due to fire. There's a lane at the back of the property with parking and with the front driveway that will fit two vehicles tandem style. There's a shed in the back and the property is fenced. Being sold as is, where is, with no warranties. Exterior is brick, located along the rapid transit route, which nobody cares about. This home is needs a complete interior renovation. Okay, so this thing's listed here for $349,900. Something like this. Okay, spring market, Sound of Music. Peter made this beautiful thumbnail for us. We're hunting. We're riding. We're feeling aggressive tonight. Something like this. Honestly, $349,000, like, no. That's all you say. Write an offer. Just say no. That's all you put. Don't even write anything else on the offer. Get your name, sign all the 7 pages, and on the Schedule A, just write no. I'm not doing it. I'm not paying $349,000. Call me back with a number that actually makes sense. What number makes sense, Adam? What do you think you would pay? Why don't we go to the trusty dusty calculator? Let's just say this thing could be worth $420,000 because Pete's 420 blazing it right now. 420. And let's just think about what a fully gutted fire damaged building probably requires for renovation. I don't know. let's write 110 grand, because you know what? Shit's getting expensive these days. So you can see right away, because my calculator, oh, and it's going to take a lot longer. It's going to take at least 6 months. Like if you actually flipped it, it'd be 6. Yeah, whatever. Let's just put 8. And then for this, I would say just 6 months, because it's really hard these days to find contractors that are reliable, and everything's very expensive these days. So here's the thing. And I zoomed in for the folks at the library. 110 grand, not unreasonable, right? Because if it's saying full gut, like what's damaged in there? I don't know. What could that mean? Well, it could mean replacing drywall, flooring, cabinets. You know, there could be damage structurally from fires, like if it ruined any joists or anything like that. Like it's really hard to tell without going in. The nice thing is that the listing explicitly tells us there's no entering the building, so that's fantastic. So, you know, we'll just budget 110, and maybe that's not even enough, but we'll start there. So you can see here on my calculator, if we do a $110,000 rehab budget and we have a $250,000 purchase price, you know, we could possibly make, if nothing goes wrong, $17,000, right? And 8 months, you might be saying, Adam, that's a long time. Yeah, it is. Because something like this, first of all, Adelaide's one of the worst streets in the entire city. But, you know, bad streets don't mean you don't invest in them. Okay. I invested in Hamilton Road. It is the worst street. Okay. It's worse than Adelaide. But the thing is, when you're buying these things, you got to price in more time. Okay. And more, like way more safety. So 8 months is not bad, because you could probably do a renovation like that in 3 or 4 months, but then you'd have to wait 3 or 4 months to actually sell the damn thing if you were looking at doing a flip. Now, if we come over here, I'd say rent is basically the same there as it is at Kellogg's. And this is a bigger building. The parking sucks. Adelaide sucks. Okay. So maybe 2,400 is a little bit too much. So maybe we'll just say 2,200 just to make everybody happy, and the Londoners don't have to scream at me. But again, we're going to apply this logic and in every city. So if you're watching this somewhere else and you're like, wow, I don't know anything about London, just think of like the shittiest street in your city and then find a burnt down building in it. That's what we're looking at. Okay. So we're going to apply the same logic in anywhere that we look. Everything's the same. So we got our 110,000 that carried over. We got 2,200 for rent, plus utilities, or including, you know what, including utilities, maybe it would be 2,400. And then I would say it would take 6 months again. And what that means is it's going to take us our 4 months to renovate, and then 2 months to find somebody willing to live on Adelaide Street for $2,400. Cash flow minus 456. Rut-row, Reggie. That's not going to work. So what do? We have to come over here, and we either need to get more rent, not possible, or we need to ratchet down on our after repair value, right? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're going to pull a ton of capital out of a building to lose $450 a month, right? Because like, do the quick math, that's a lot of money by the end of the year that you've actually lost in negative cash flow. So you don't really want to do that. Okay, so let's just say it's worth $350K at the end of it. That still doesn't cash flow. So this will never work as a rental, right? We know that. Unless we get, again, we can pull the lever again and really pull down our purchase price. But we're trying to see here, we're back down, of course, right? Because we just played with these numbers, and the numbers don't change. Remember that. So when you are playing around with a purchase price, but your rent doesn't change, okay? This is another calculator tool, like tip. When you're playing around with purchase prices and all of a sudden your rent doubles, right? Or sorry, your rent stays the same, but your purchase price has like gone up significantly, or your after repair value, like you're just not, like the numbers are going to work out the same for cash flow, because cash flow doesn't care about how much equity you've made, right? Cash flow doesn't care about how much equity you've made. So while you could make a lot of money taking a burnt down building and making it very valuable, your actual cash flow doesn't care about equity. Okay. In that sense, sorry, and I should clarify, that's if you go and refinance it at 80% loan to value. So when you actually do a BRRRR, your cash flow doesn't care, right? Because you've just taken your debt and you've raised it up to match that new value that you added. But your rent, in this case, didn't change, right? So we're already using our after repair rent here. So the after repair rent at 2,400, like you've got to get this sucker down to, you know, you got to get this way below where we're looking at getting it for it to make any sense at all. So for this deal to make sense, like you've literally got, so like, again, even at these numbers at 320K ARV and a 250 purchase price, you're still losing 78 grand. So like, how does this deal work? Somebody tell me. Well, it starts to look good at 150, right? It starts to look good at 150 and the after repair value looks acceptable. It looks acceptable at 320. Okay. Cause that's pretty much as high as you can go on in terms of actual value at it with an 80% mortgage to get positive cash flow. And $60, I mean, $60, like this isn't even going to fill your Prius up, right? Like you just had to take your Prius over to the library so that you can actually see the calculator. So you're not using your mobile phone. And now you're making $60 a month in cash flow, but it took 152 grand to get there, right? That's where it really sucks. That's where it sucks. Okay. Now it's a perfect burr because you would, with this, with these numbers, you would be able to pull all your money out. So you'd actually have 16 grand in pocket. Okay. So it's a perfect burr if you got these numbers. But again, let's remind ourselves what they're listed at 349, 349. So like there's literally no world where this listing makes any sense. So what am I getting at? Well, in a world where there's a lot more listings coming onto the market, it becomes even more important to understand the tools. The faster you are at using a tool like this calculator, and the more effective you are at understanding what the numbers mean, the more likely it is that you'd be able to take action and take advantage of a listing like this one here on Burbrook, where you've got a good price, right, in a great neighborhood. A good price in a great neighborhood is basically what we're looking, because a great price in a bad neighborhood is a headache. That's a lot of problems waiting for you. But a good price in a great neighborhood sounds good because then we know we've got great renters. We've got really high chances of getting whatever after repair value it is that we're seeking based on recent relevant comparable sales. And we know that when we put inputs in, we put in improvements, all we're doing is helping to secure an even better tenant. Whereas when we get a great price in a bad neighborhood, we do not know that we'll actually hit the appraisal. We don't know that we'll secure good tenants. And it's possible that you run into situations like I did, where like you get vandalism, you get theft, you get all sorts of shit that happens during the process. And that's not good for anybody. So, you know, my whole point of showing you this listing and then showing you this one is like, you got to get good at the calculator, because as more things come on the market, you're going to see a lot of turds. Like you're going to see just a lot of bad listings come up. And the difference between a freaking turd and a diamond in the rough is just in the numbers, right? It's in understanding what we can do with the calculator to make our offer the best that we can and be the most prepared to come in with your best offer first and start to actually, you know, get consistent and get serious about looking at buying. Because like, if you haven't talked to your power team, if you haven't already got pre-approval on your mortgage, if you don't already know where your renovation funds are going to come from, if you don't already know as you're looking at these properties, if the max allowable offer is going to be relevant to your capability or capacity and hit your goals, there's no point in looking. You're wasting your time. You're wasting everybody else's time. It doesn't make any sense. So what we want to do is prepare ourselves so that when we see a listing like this one, like this has already been up 7 days, right? So what does that mean? I mean, that means like they probably had a bazillion walkthroughs. They've probably got offers already. And they're starting to see a lot of interest, right? And so if you're just like another offer that comes in with like financing and inspection clause and like 400 million other things, you don't look that attractive. So coming in knowing what your max allowable offer is, and coming in knowing like, okay, I can pay as much as 320 on this as long as I walk through the building and see that there's nothing like crazy that's not shown in the photos, right? Maybe there's a few questions. So like, I'd still advise like, you know, go for a walkthrough. That doesn't take any time. It's vacant. You probably go anytime you want. Just talk to your realtor. But on something like this, like you want to go in, see it, make a fast decision based on what you already know, because you already did your research and you already talked to your power team. Mahmoud, our Our link for the calculator is just adamjdmartin@gmail.com/learn. Okay. Should be on the description of our videos in the thing. I'm going to try and comment it, but most of the time it just doesn't work when I try and comment. So we'll see if you get it. Boom. Comment failed to post. Anyways, it's adamjdmartin.com/learn. I'll pull it up on here because you guys can see that. How about that? Now I'm thinking with my big brain. So adamjdmartin.com/learn. You came to learn. How are we going to learn? Well, part of it is getting a calculator. Okay. So just put your stuff into there. I don't really care. You can put some fake info in there if you want. I'm probably literally never going to email you anyways. But it's just a cool experiment. So, there's calculator, my personal deal calculator. Now, when you download it, all you got to do is make a copy so that it's editable. So download get the link, make a copy, then you can do whatever you want in there. And if you have any questions about the calculator or how to use it, feel free to hit me up. There's lots of links on the website for how to get in touch with me. But yeah, I mean, like, we did all of our market updates. Everybody's excited about all the new listings and everybody's excited about all the new sales. So I guess like my real takeaway, and Pete, I think I'm just going to talk for the rest of this. So zoom in on my faccia da culo. For those Italians out there, I'm sorry. I just said some naughty stuff. There's a lot of new listings. There's a lot of new sales. Okay. So it's been really interesting watching the various markets. Like all of the new listings have been met with like a ton of demand. And so it's kind of interesting. Like typically what you would see is like a big spike in price if the demand is outpacing the listings. But what we're seeing is in a lot of markets, the price hasn't moved that much, but we've got a ton of inventory coming on the market and we're seeing days on market plummet, right? So like the last few markets that we looked at, days on market went down by like 20 days or as a percentage, 50%. So like there's basically like 40 to 50% more listings coming up, but they're selling in half the time. So like that's kind of crazy, right? So like you'd expect that price will go up, is generally the assumption there. Once the good inventory is gone, there's still demand that gets just kind of pumped up. Like people are really weird. So if we get any news on like rates dropping or anything like that, like the spring market's going to be insane. But what we need to learn from what we just saw here today is like new listings doesn't mean good listings, right? It doesn't mean good inventory. It doesn't mean good deals. It means that there's more shit to look at. But the problem is with more to look at, this, like the last time you were at a restaurant, especially like a mediocre restaurant, there's like 400 things on the menu. What do you even get? Right. And the thing is, when you try and do 400 things, you're probably not doing anything great. So you have to be prepared. You have to know where your power team's at, right? So that's your accountant, your lawyer, your mortgage agent. If you're ready to do like a burr or something or a flip, you got to make sure you have your trades. Okay. So electrician, drywall, paint, flooring, kitchens, like this is all stuff that's going to go down pretty quickly. Plumber, these are all things that you need lined up in order to execute on a project quickly. Because I think right now the timing's interesting to capture some of this demand. Now, you don't want to be timing the market, but if you're doing a flip, like some of the inventory that's just flooding the market right now, there's deals like this Burbrook Place one that are kind of interesting, that if you took quick action on it, you might be able to capitalize on the spring market and spring demand where people are looking to move, right? Our best months in almost every market across Ontario, at the very least, are going to be in that spring market heading into the summer, but not actually in summer. So summer is kind of a dead zone. And then fall market's usually pretty good again. And then winter is just like crickets. So, right now could be interesting if you were actually playing around with like buying in the spring market, doing some rehabs, doing some stuff like that. Cause like usually you'll have to budget a month or two for closing, a month or three for rehab, and then listing process. So you'd be listing in the fall market again. So you could actually kind of pretend to time it and understand the market that way, but you'd have to act quick, right? And you'd have to be decisive. And I think the decisiveness is what's important when we've got a flood of listings and a flood of demand, because it really is kind of a seller's market still right now. Like, even though there's all this inventory, like the way I'm looking at this, where there's like so many shit listings coming up, like that's not inspiring as a buyer, right? It's just like there's a lot more, but like I don't want any of them, which means everybody's perked up for all these new listings, but we're all still staring at like this one listing here, right? She's the prom queen, right? So like these listings are going to be the prom queens. And the unfortunate part about that is everybody gets hyped up. They do the work, they do the prep to get all their money lined up, right? They get their mortgage pre-approval and whatever. We know it's springtime. We know it's time to move, but you're not just competing with other investors. You're competing with homeowners, right? You're competing with all sorts of different parties that are looking at the spring market with demand, which is why like I always like to buy in the winter months. Like it's a giant pain in the ass, but like nobody else is playing, right? So when you're the only fish in the freaking water, you can be pretty big fish and you don't have to do too much. So I prefer that, but in this case, it's a weird circumstance where there's a ton of new listings, a ton of demand that's been pent up. The rates have come down a bit, and it looks like they're even coming down further. Like Meridian right now is offering like 4%, right? Or just over 4. So like, honestly, that's like go time, man. Like 4% is freaking good money. 3% is better money, but 4% is great money, right? When I'm used to buying at 10% or 15%, 4% is a freaking smooth ride. So when you're looking at 4% mortgages and a $249,900 price, like all day for me, that's a firm offer if I like the property. And it's quick. It's like whatever, like you literally write a letter. And that's the other thing you should bring back at this time. Write a letter. Like, dude, we will literally do whatever you want for terms if we can have the 249.9 price, right? Like you can have anything you want from a terms perspective if I can have that price. I think that's how I would go about that in this market. In other markets, like maybe you need more security in that offer. Maybe you need to add in whatever, like inspection clauses and stuff like that. But like it depends where you're at in your investing career. But if you're serious right now, just know that you're competing with me, right? And people like me who are psychotic, right? Like we're just going to go and toss a firm offer in at the right price and know that we can get the financing if we need to close it because it gets accepted. So just keep that in mind as we go into the spring market, as you continue to see more inventory and as we continue to see more demand for the things that are coming up, and especially those good listings. So I guess that's the real takeaway from tonight. I didn't have a ton of listings to show you because like everything was just so radically unimpressive. Like I literally showed you the only listing in all of London, which is like a huge city, that I think is worth looking at right now. So I'm just kind of clicking around, and there's other areas of London that the price, there's other areas of London that the price maybe changes where you also get significantly more rent. So let's just take a look real quick here to see if there's anything. Like these are just trash, like in terms of price. And like, again, like no disrespect to the agents who are getting these listings or putting them up or whatever, but as investors, like, God damn, you got to be diligent about what you're buying in terms of how you're going to make your money. Like, how are we going to cash flow on these properties? And what does that look like? Like at this point, you're better off probably buying a trailer. Just buy a mobile home in London because that's where the prices are at. That's the only place that makes sense from a price perspective. Like even this, like Cheapside, like, dude, Cheapside sucks. This sucks. This is not good. And it's $500,000. Grow up. Oh yeah. Here. Yeah. All right. So, 500,000 for this. I'm going to get pissed off. I'm going to get mad. All right. But we got to get off this before I get mad because that's so stupid. It's not even funny. Not a good investment. Not a good investment. Give me a RICO complaint, but that's a shit investment. Prosperity for 729. Like again, with something like this, it's really hard to imagine how you make the cash flow work. And this channel's, really focused on cash flow because they're trying to say this is like a good area for, okay. So Fanshawe College, just for context, right, is right here. So like this is literally on top of Fanshawe College. So it's going to be like a student neighborhood. So financing could be a little bit tight. How many beds has it got? It's got 5 beds. Okay. Fanshawe prices for rent, when I was doing student rentals, was like, I don't know, the absolute best you could get was like 650. Maybe it's up to 7 now. Yeah, you'd have to be, kind of crazy, but like 729. So like, let's just do it on the calculator here. So 729, right? Let's just say it's 729. 729. We're going to assume we can't really add a ton of value to it. We'll take this down to 0. We're just going to, well, it's never really 0. We'll just do 10K just for improvements. Let's just say we can get 700. What's 700 times 5? 3,500. Okay, you're losing $1,000 a month. All right, $1,000 a month if you look at 729 and a monthly rent of $3,500. Okay, that's at $700 a month. What if it's 800, Adam? What if it's 800 a month? What happens? How does that work? Oh, good. We only lose $600 a month. Grow up. Okay. This is a student neighborhood. This is a student area. Like, so the only thing you're going to be able to do, because like a family doesn't want to live in the student area. It's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So that means as an investment, your only option is to flip it, which you can't. It's already pretty much in, a decent shape. So your only option is to do a student rental, and your only option is to get market rent, which would be 700 maybe, and 800 would be like absurd. It's like the most I've ever heard of. And at 700, you lose 1,000 a month, and at 800, you lose 600. So what I'm getting at is like a bunch of new listings does not mean a bunch of good listings. And to understand what a good listing is, it's helpful to use a tool like this calculator to be able to go in and very quickly do what we just did. Look at 729 grand, add a 10K budget to just clean shit up so that it's rentable. And then look at what happens when you input the market rents. And when you see yourself losing $600 to $1,000 a month, you know that it's probably not a good investment, right? It's just not a good investment. So you just move on. And that's like a 10-second process. And that's the whole point of using tools like this. And that's why we come on here. I come on here every week. We're going to look at listings. That's something you can look forward to. We'll talk about investing strategies. That's something you can look forward to. We'll talk about my thoughts about the market in general. But mostly what I'm trying to convey on these Tuesdays is that we have a two-way street here where you have the opportunity to talk to me in the comments and I can answer your questions. And you can also come here to just hear some of my thoughts about what's going on currently, right? So when I see listings like this coming up, I'm going to put them through the calculator, and, like the numbers just don't lie, right? And that's kind of the message I'm trying to really get across is like, there's no bad time to invest. There's no bad place to invest necessarily. It all comes down to the numbers, and the money talks here. And I think that's really important. And, this whole channel is just about real people doing real shit. The reason I have this calculator, the reason I use this one is because I built it, and I built it with like all the variables I know are important when we're taking a quick glance, because nothing else matters. Like when the market's good and things are moving, nothing matters more than speed, time, right? Efficiency, being ready, being actually prepared, and being having high conviction. And the only way to do that is to understand the numbers. So once you've understood the numbers, we can talk all sorts of theory about like, what would you do? What could you do? But you got to understand the numbers first. And that's like kind of what the point is of Tuesday, is to like ask those critical questions where we don't have an understanding or where we need to get some more clarity, so that you can use this like me, where you just go boom, 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 boom. And you can tell the difference right away between a big steaming pile of turd sitting on the MLS and a good deal. Like that one deal that we talked about tonight, 413 Burbrook, that's a decent deal, right? That's something you could move on at that price. And we know that we can go up to 320 on it if it's only going to be 10K reno. But you'd still have to go look and make sure like foundation's good, roof's good, everything else makes sense. It's not like, a crack shack beside it or something like that, to make sure that it's palatable to buy. But, I guess that's really all I have to say tonight. Like, beware of the hype, right? Because there's going to be a lot of hype about these listings. And I was, I'm feeling hyped up too, because we hear it everywhere, right? There's so many new listings. There's so much more activity. The market's up, the volume's up, days on market is down, right? These types of terms are exciting, but the reality is more listings is not better listings, right? Necessarily. So we need to go and we need to investigate and do our own due diligence to understand what these new listings represent. Do they represent great deals, or do they just represent something else that's going to sit on the market and get stale? And the only way to know the difference between what's good and what's not is to understand your actual own goals. What are you trying to accomplish? And then understand the numbers behind what goes into a building and what you can get out of it. And that's really it. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. I hope you enjoyed our live stream. Again, this is this is your chance here every Tuesday to come and talk to me about anything that's on your mind. It's essentially a free coaching session where you can just pick my brain about anything that you want. Like, we can take this stream in any direction. Part of what we're trying to do with the Canadian Real Estate Channel is create more community and just have a place where people can come to have a two-way street, right? A two-way conversation. So tonight was a lot of me asking questions of you and just sort of making statements about what I'm seeing. But I'm more than happy to make it a back and forth at any point. So I'll see you guys back here next week around 7:30. We're always kind of aiming for that timing. I was a little bit later this week just because of my grandpa's birthday. And there is always kind of something going on. I don't know how everything gets so busy on a Tuesday, but we're here every week. And if you guys have any suggestions for content you would like to see in terms of like polished content, if you want like a guide on something, if you want any sort of like strategy guides or what to do in certain scenarios, feel free to let us know that in the comments. And if you just want to come back and have a discussion, have a beer, have a club soda with some diamond cubes, we're back here every week. So I'll be here back again. We are looking for more sponsors for the market updates because we've only got like 6 markets for the updates right now. And there's a lot more than 6 markets across Canada. And we're super light on the coast, right? So we're super light on BC. We're super light on like New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, Alberta. Okay. So we're looking for sponsors for all over the place. And we're more than happy to have conversations with people if you think that you're a good fit or somebody that's a good fit. So reach out to us for that and any other real estate questions you have. There's all sorts of information about me and how to get a hold of me on adamjdmartin.com. Otherwise, we'll see you back here next week. I'm not going to chug the club soda. Cheers, everybody.